If your blood runs orange and blue, this is the pod for you. You're listening to Orange and Blue Bloods, hosted by EJ Stewart and Tommy Beer. Let's get to it, New York.
But let's get to our last story for today. And a former Knicks coach is hoping to restore one of the city's most iconic basketball brands to glory. Rick Pitino was introduced Tuesday as the new head coach for St. John's men's basketball team. Pitino spent the past 3 seasons at Iona, where he went 64-22. He made 2 NCAA tournament appearances with the Gales. He left Louisville after the 2017 season, somewhat in shame amid a slew of scandals. The final one being a pay-to-play scheme that involved the FBI investigation. There was also a scandal in 2015 involving a former escort who said that she was hired by Louisville assistants to party with recruits. Pitino was suspended 5 games for that scandal, and the team had to forfeit its postseason aspirations for that season. So Pitino definitely comes with a cloud of, mess, which is kind of where he's been for a lot of his career. But he's a 2-time national champion. He won both at Kentucky and Louisville. He made 3 Final Fours with 3 different schools. So I don't know if anybody's ever done that. They have very few guys have done that. So Rick Pitino, a legendary coach, an iconic coach, kind of out of the main lens of college basketball, now kind of back into the mainstream, so to speak, with St. John's. How do you feel? Do you think Rick can bring St. John's back? Like, it's been a long time. Like, I feel like this has been a dormant sports brand in New York City for a while now.
100%. And for that reason, I'm okay with rolling the dice. I mean, if I look at the big picture, this is a 70-year-old man. What's the future? What's the long-term picture? Obviously, you'd like to hire, the young aspiring assistant or the D2 coach that comes in, turns the program around and is there for 30 years and, has an arena named after him, after like Carnesecca, like that type of thing is the ideal. Knicks have tried that. It hasn't worked, the Norm Roberts and the other guys that they've kind of brought in and, that they thought could recruit. It didn't get the job done for whatever the case is. So for that reason, I think it's worth it's kind of similar to the Aaron Rodgers situation in New York. Like there's kind of a small window, but they've tried other things. They've tried drafting the quarterback multiple times. It hasn't panned out. So let's go with a guy that brings some baggage with them, brings some luggage with them, but he also brings games won. He also brings legitimacy and a reputation for winning basketball games. Iona, 2 out of 3 years, bringing them to the tournament. And the Knicks, the combination of him in New York with the NIL opportunities, that money has been a situation at St. John's, funding the program and recruits, etc. That will not be a situation going forward. He will have and access to plenty of boosters that are going to come out of the woodwork and hopefully bring a little spark, a little energy. Because when the Johnnies are good, the city gets behind them. This is a city that that loves basketball. So let's hope he does. I'm interested in your take, though. What do you think? Do you think it's worth a roll of the dice?
It's crazy because I sit here as a Jets fan and a St. John's fan who lambasted Aaron Rodgers for years with the Packers, but said as soon as he came available, the Jets need to get him. I'm a St. John's fan who lambasted Pitino I pretty much thought he wrecked the Louisville program with his lack of institutional control, as the NCAA would say. And I'm saying that you have to get rid of Pitino. This is kind of where it has to be because St. John's has tried everything. They got the longtime assistant who's a New Yorker, Norm Roberts. That didn't work. They got the TV personality and guy who people could relate to in Steve Lavin. That didn't work. They got the former St. John's great. Yes, and Fran Francilla back in the day. They got the former St. John's great, an NBA great, who's never coached before, but has an affinity to the city. He's from here. Chris Mullin did not work. And now they said, let's just do random. Let's just get somebody from out of nowhere, but who has won a lot, and let's see if they can do it. I know they've never won anything big, but they're a consistent winner. That didn't work with Mike Anderson. So they've now tried pretty much everything, and nothing has worked. So you have to go for the proven commodity. You have to go for the legend, the icon that is Rick Pitino. And look, I pretty much expect that in 6-7 years, there's going to be some gnarly scandal that's going to make the school look terrible and put this team back into purgatory. But at this point, what do you have to lose? That's where they are now. Like, and that's what's been disappointing since they're to kind of rebrand the Big East, where all these, all the Catholic schools essentially came together and they brought in some new schools, Creighton, Xavier, and such. You looked at the landscape and said, okay, St. John's, they have a chance in this Big East. Before when Big East had Syracuse, something like you knew, like there was no chance St. John's was cracking through that Big East. When Louisville was in there, where Pitino was with them, like that Big East was gnarly. And Notre Dame as well. But you saw this new landscape. Say, okay, Butler's here now, Creighton's here now. You think that St. John's, they should find a way to be a perennial tournament team. Maybe they'll win the conference one year, and it's just been nothing. They've had a couple of tournament appearances, but that's been it. They haven't had any success in this new Big East. And it's been shocking because there have been plenty of years. I've been to some of these media days and seen the preseason rankings. Some of these years, St. John's had picked to finish first or second or third in the Big East, and they never came close to that. So I think it's an exciting day for St. John's fans. I think that one thing I will say is it seems like this new president, at the school, like he's invested in winning. This is a totally different. Rick Pitino said the only reason why I'm here essentially is because of this guy. I guess they had a connection because of the Providence connection, and they're not going to accept what's happening with this basketball program. Now, it sounds like they're going to try to save some of this money by maybe skimping out on Mike Anderson, because they're trying to say he was fired with cause, which I don't know what he could have done to be fired with cause other than be a bad coach and lost games. But they're trying not to pay him. They're getting sued now. So I think they're probably saying, we can just fight this guy in lawsuit. We're going to pay him 5 years from now, because that's what happened with Kevin Ollie in UConn. But I think they're thinking we can save some money now and use this money on Rick, use this money on the facilities. And I'm hoping that they find a way to, once again, kind of make MSG their home court. Like, I think one of the things that has really hurt St. John's is, watching them play so many marquee games at Carnesecca Arena. And it's ridiculous. I grew up when St. John's played, about half their home games at Madison Square Garden. Now it's about 4 or 5. Like, that's not going to happen with Rick Pitino. I assure you he's going to make sure they're playing at the Garden. And he actually spoke about what it means to be the head coach of St. John's and playing at Madison Square Garden. So I want you guys to hear this from Rick Pitino.
And today, for me, this is one of the most special moments of my life. I've been to the Garden as the Knick coach. I've been to the Garden as the Providence coach. And now I get to represent something really, really special. And it's not about when or if. It's going to happen for St. John's. And it's going to happen in a big way. But the first thing you have to do is you have to build a culture, not only a culture of great basketball, exciting basketball, but a culture of academic excellence, a culture of treating everybody with great respect, a work ethic second to none, giving every ounce of perspiration you have in you for the name on the front, St. John's.
I tell you what, like, the one thing I will say about Rick, and I've always said this about him, is he's one of my favorite coaches. I say all the stuff about him being, slimy and potentially, getting this team in problem. Like, he's a phenomenal coach. The way he prepares his team, the way he adjusts in games, I've loved watching Louisville. I was a little too young when he was at Kentucky. I've always loved watching Louisville play because, he's one of the best coaches. But you hear that and you say, "Yeah, I know why this guy is successful. I know why this guy wins games," because that makes you want to run through a wall right there. You say, "Let's go, let's get it."
It's very rare that you get a guy that excels in the X's and O's and the motivation talking stuff.
Exactly.
And he checks both boxes. And that's a rare commodity. And that's one of the reasons why he's been successful every single place he's gone, is his teams have won. And I think the other, as far as the scandal stuff, I listen, the prostitutes and all that other stuff, that's inexcusable. But as far as the pay for play, I always thought the NCAA was a joke to begin with, So I don't want to bash them too much because it's a greedy corporation, and the rules that they had in place basically enforced an unfair caste system. So I don't want to make too big of a deal about that.
Right.
But I will say, if you're going to get Pitino, now is a good time to get him, because the NCAA is in so much flux. The transfer portal changes the game to such an extent. The NIL stuff changes the game to such an extent. I mean, you watch these NCAA games, it's almost like every other player on the court, they'll go to the free throw line and the announcer will say, started his career in Louisville, transferred to Kentucky, and now is back at, University of Charleston for a senior year.
Yeah.
2 or 3 colleges. Every one of these guys, it seems, I'm amazed, and 10, 15 years ago, a guy would get, maybe he would only stay for a year, but rarely would you see a good player start somewhere else and then finish, and let alone with a stop in between. because you had to sit out that transfer year. That no longer being an issue, and that transfer portal changes everything. And this Johnnies are going to have good roster spots. They're going to have roster spots available. And Pitino will get guys to come, whether those guys stay healthy. He's talking about academics. I don't think they're going to win any spelling bees.
No academic All-Americans on this one.
I wouldn't put my money on any academic all-stars, but he will get guys that can shoot the ball. He will get guys that defend. He will get guys that are long and lean and can get up and down the floor and play the style, the brand of basketball that he wants to play, and he'll demand that they play that way because he comes with that gravitas, that reputation. Guys will want to play for him and play hard for him. And especially it can be a self-fulfilling prophecy if and when the Johnnies start winning games, then that kind of only compounds on itself. NIL money starts rolling in. St. John's plays more games at the Garden. You talked about it. My family had season tickets for Johnnies late 90s, early 2000s. I was at the Garden when Bootsy Thornton scored, I think it was 42 to beat Duke.
Oh, yeah.
That was a big game. Those were big games. I mean, there was, it's hard for younger fans, 20-year-old kids to imagine. And forget the Mullen Berry days; those predate me.
Oh exactly. That's like my dad's era.
When it was this Johnnies were arguably bigger in the city than the Knicks, and Big East basketball was bigger than the NBA for a lot of people. Just that little run that they had, near the turn of the century, was a reminder of how big and how much how much attention they can generate if the St. John's is playing well.
Yeah, back-to-back National Players of the Year with Chris Mullin and Walter Berry. Final Four appearance in which 3 of the 4 teams were in the Big East. Almost got 4 out of 4 that year. That there was a golden era of college basketball here in New York, and maybe Rick Pitino can bring a little bit of that in this new era here. It's funny you mentioned the transfer portal and the ability to overhaul your roster very quickly, and I think that's why it's going to end up being very successful. I think that maybe it's not year one, but it could be year one. He could just bring in crazy, awesome roster of transfers and 1 or 2 recruits, and that's really all you need. But definitely by year 2, this is going to be a top 15 program. I'm that confident. But like he said in the post game, in the press conference, they asked him about like the future of the team and the roster they have. He said, "quote A lot of these players probably won't be back on this team because they're not a fit for me," which is one of my favorite quotes I've heard since Deion Sanders in his press conference at Colorado, when he told the players in his first meeting with them that he's bringing his luggage with him and it's Louis, and that they should think about getting in the transfer portal because they're going to get a lot of playing time here. So Rick Pitino and Coach Prime clearly cut from the same cloth there.
I haven't seen it. Has Soriano said anything? I know he was, if Anderson's gone, I'm not coming back. Has he said anything since the Pitino?
Yeah, I've not seen him say anything. I know he was very upset about Mike Anderson leaving, which is understandable. I mean, he came here, because Anderson came here. So here I have a quote here. Rick Pitino, he said, "I asked the character of the basketball team, to be honest, I don't get into glowing reports, but I did get a glowing report on Joel Soriano. We're going to bring him to a level he didn't think he could reach." So Pitino wants him, which makes sense. That's if there's any guy on this team you want to keep, I think you want to keep a guy who's a walking double-double in Joel Soriano. But yeah, I know he was very upset about what happened to Mike Anderson. I'm sure this lawsuit is going to help their case.
Yeah.
Rick Pitino is, as you guys heard in that quote, I mean, he is a very persuasive person. He's a charismatic guy. He's a guy easy to like until you hear about some of the things he gets caught up into. But so I think there's a chance maybe he can do this. Actually, I see here that he named Soriano the captain of the team, which is a big move there right there. So maybe they've already squashed whatever issues Soriano may have had with the firing of Mike Anderson. But exciting day, St. John's, exciting day for New York basketball. Rick Pitino, I think, is one of the, even though I know his Knick tenure was short, like just because him being a Long Islander, him coaching the Knicks, him just being a Big East coach at Providence and Louisville for a long time was in the Big East as well. I just think he's one of the important New York figures when it comes to basketball. So him being head coach of St. John's, I think, is awesome.
That accent is a guy that should coach St. John's. You just hear.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a good place.